بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله صلى الله عليك وعلى أهل بيتك المظلومين صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله يا شهيد يا غريب يا مظلوم كربلاء يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. Illuminate your hearts and majalis with a loud salawat for Muhammad and Al Muhammad. Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The reputation of Islam, our religion, is not very positive in this country. Islamophobia has been on the rise, and anti-Islamic sentiments have been increasing. And there is a shared feeling of fear from our religion that many non-Muslims have, and likewise a shared feeling of hatred towards our religion. The religion of Islam that we love, most of us who love so much, who take so much pride in being followers of this great religion, not everyone sees it as being such a good religion. Many non-Muslims see Islam as an evil religion. And there's many factors to that, there's many reasons, but one of the most important and primary factors behind all this unfavorable and negative views and opinions and sentiments about Islam is because of the acts of Muslims themselves. Some wicked wrongdoings of Muslims who have carried out despicable acts in the name of Islam. And Islam has suffered and paid the price over and over again. They have tarnished the reputation, the image of Islam, and they have distorted the message of Islam. Islam, which is a religion of peace, how ironic that it has transformed in the eyes of so many to the religion of terror and violence. And that's because of the acts of some Muslims, some ignorant Muslims or some evil Muslims that have hijacked this religion and presented this religion in such a negative way. A few months ago there was an act of terrorism that happened in Paris. And I read in the news, it was reported that before the terrorists killed the people, he cried out, Allahu Akbar. And almost every time when we hear of an act of terrorism, there's always a loud Allahu Akbar before it. To an extent that these two words, Allahu Akbar, God is great, has become synonymous with death in the eyes of many non-Muslims. In fact, there was a video that I saw once of a busy market. It's filled with people buying and selling in one of the countries. And then a young man comes and he does a prank. He stands in the middle of the market and he cries out, Allahu Akbar. What do people do? That's all he did. Allahu Akbar. Everyone runs for their lives because they're expecting a loud boom after that. There's always Allahu Akbar and an explosion after that. So Allahu Akbar, which is the call for prayer. God is great. We hear it in the adhan, and it should remind us of salah, not death. It should remind us of salah, which is the most peaceful and humble act. It's a form of meditation, isn't it? Allahu Akbar should remind me of this peaceful act between me and my Creator, but it has become the face of death and destruction. When people hear Allahu Akbar, they remember death and destruction and they think they will die. This is how bad we have destroyed the name of Islam and the symbols of Islam. Some Muslims, because of their ignorance. So we find, because of this, you find there's all these negative connotations, all these negative views against Islam because of these acts of Muslims against Islam that have reflected in such a bad way. And I don't blame them. I don't blame non-Muslims for hating Islam, brothers and sisters. Because if I was in their shoes, I would hate Islam as well. Because the only Islam they have seen is the counterfeit Islam. The Islam of ISIS, the Islam of Muawiyah, the Islam of Wahhabism, that counterfeit Islam. And that all it has to offer to humanity is death and destruction and violence and terror. They haven't seen the true Islam, which is the Islam of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. The Islam that's being portrayed and spread today is the Islam of Wahhabism, the Islam of Muawiyah. And I don't blame them for hating that type of counterfeit, fake Islam, because that Islam wants to kill all of us as well. These extremists, they kill more Muslims than non-Muslims. And then they read verses of the Quran and they say Allahu Akbar and they become spokesmen for Islam. So you don't blame them for hating this religion. So when we see everything that's happening, brothers and sisters, when we see our religion is hijacked, it's taken hostage, when it is besieged, this shows us that every single one of us has to rise, brothers and sisters. We all have to come forth and rise and defend our religion, show the true version of Islam. We can no longer, be distracted with our personal lives and say, I don't care and it's not my responsibility. The Holy Quran says, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbik." Allah says, invite people to Islam, defend your religion, support it. Attract people to your religion at all times, but especially during these times, because the time that we live in now, it's an exceptional time, because there's all these extremists that are hijacking our religion. And most people have never heard of the true Islam of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. So the Holy Quran says, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbik." Invite people to Islam, to the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then God tells us how to attract people. Because you have to be smart when you want to invite people to your faith. When you want to propagate, when you want to do da'wah, you have to be smart. The Quran says, bil hikmah. Number one, use wisdom. Use wise, smart ways in order to invite people and attract them to your faith. Wal maw'izatil hasana. And use good ways, nice ways, in order to attract people to your faith. So it is an obligation upon every single one of us that we become ambassadors of Islam. And we support and protect and defend our religion when we see it is taken hostage. Now some of you may say, I can't defend my religion. I can't support it. I can't invite people to Islam because I'm not a scholar. Because I don't have the necessary knowledge. That's the obligation of the scholars, the ulama, the sheikh, the sayyid. I'm not a sheikh. I haven't studied. So how can I clear these misconceptions and invite people to Islam? You need knowledge in order to engage in those debates and arguments and to convince people, don't you? If you don't have knowledge, you're just going to make it worse. So some of us may say, we're not scholars. We don't have the necessary education in order for us to invite people to Islam. But we don't need, brothers and sisters, that education to invite people. You don't have to go on the mimbar, on the pulpit, and give lectures to convince people. You don't even have to speak to invite people. Because there is a much more effective way that every single one of us can attract non-Muslims to Islam. And that is through our actions. As they say, actions speak louder than words. If I were to give you a 10-series lecture about Islam being a non-violent religion, and then the next day I join ISIS, will anyone buy what I said? I don't care how mesmerizing my speeches will be. I don't care how nice, how powerful my sermons may have been. But if my actions say otherwise, no one's going to buy it. If I speak and preach about being non-violent, but then I'm a violent person in my personal life, no one's going to buy it. Because at the end of the day, people look at your actions and they judge you and they judge your religion based on how you perform, based on how you act. If I do something bad, right away people say it's a bad religion. And that's why Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said in one hadith, he told his companions, he's told his Shia, and we're all Shia, but Imam Sadiq, aren't we? He told his Shia, كُونُوا دُعَاةً بِغَيْرِ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ. Invite people, attract people, but you don't have to do it with your mouth, with your tongue. Be silent propagators. How? Do it with your actions, the Imam continued. The Imam said, فَلْيَرَوْا مِنْكُمُ الْوَرَعَ وَالْإِجْتِهَادِ وَالصَّلَاةِ فَإِنَّ ذَلِكَ دَاعِيَ. He says when non-Muslims, non-Shia or non-Muslims, when they see you, the Shia of Ahlul Bayt, the followers of Islam, you are very respectful, you fear Allah, you're trustworthy, you're very polite, good people, good-hearted people, respectful people. They will say that you must have a very good religion. It will right away reflect back on your religion. In another hadith, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam is narrated saying, فَالرَّجُلْ فَإِنَّ الرَّجُلَ مِنْكُمْ إِذَا وَرِعَ فِي دِينِهِ وَحَسَّنَ خُلُقَهُ وَصَدَقَ الْحَدِيثِ وَأَدَّى الْأَمَانَةِ قِيلَ عَنْهُ هَذَا أَدَبُ جَعْفَرَ هَذَا جَعْفَرِيٌّ. He says in one tradition that if you, my companions, if you present yourselves in a very good way, meaning you're very polite, respectful, honest, trustworthy, very good people that are respectful, people will say, these are the students of Ja'far. They're the followers of Ja'far. Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq must have been a very good man, that his followers are very good people. فَيَسُرُّنِي ذَلِكَ. I'll be very happy because you will give such a good image of me, a positive image of me. But then the Imam says, وَإِنْ كَانَ عَلَى غَيْرِ ذَلِكَ دَخَلَ عَلَيَّ بَلَاؤُهُ وَعَارُهُ وَقِيلَ هَذَا أَدَبْ جَعْفَرَ. He says on the contrary, if it's the other way around, if you claim to be a Shia of Imam Sadiq, but you're rude, you're untrustworthy, you're impolite, you always lie, you're dishonest, you deceive other people, you have the worst behavior, demeanor, akhlaq, I will pay the price, Imam Sadiq says. I, Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq, will pay the price because people will say their religion is bad. Their teacher is bad. Imam al-Sadiq must have been a bad, rude person because his followers are all rude. So the point that Imam is trying to make is that beware of your actions. They carry a lot of weight in them, brothers and sisters. The greatest service that I can do for my religion is if my actions are good. People will say this is such a good religion. Islam is such a good religion. The Prophet is such a good Prophet. Their Imams must be good people because they're teaching them to be good. And on the contrary, the biggest disservice I can do for Islam is when I'm a Muslim and then my actions are all evil. They're all bad. They're all immoral actions. This is the greatest disservice. If I go on the minbar and I give so many lectures about Ahlul Bayt and how kind and nice and good they were, but then when I come down, my akhlaq is very bad. I'm impolite. I'm disrespectful. I have absolutely no morals. People aren't going to buy it. People will say this person has the worst religion. Their prophet must be violent. Their prophet must be evil. Their religion must be evil. And that's the greatest disservice that I will do to my religion. People don't necessarily look at what you say, but how you act. So we have to think twice, brothers and sisters, before we conduct ourselves. Because all of us, brothers and sisters, we are ambassadors of Islam, even if we don't like it. By being a Muslim, by claiming to be a Muslim and a follower of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, people will constantly judge our religion based on our actions. So we have to be careful not to distort the message of Islam, not to tarnish the reputation of Islam unwillingly. Yes, we're not going to do it on purpose. But once we don't act in the good way, in the way that we're supposed to act, people will begin to hate our religion. We will repel people from our religion. So we have to be careful not to be individuals, Muslims, that repel non-Muslims from religion because our actions are bad. Because our actions are sometimes, not very good. They're evil. This is a point that we have to focus on, brothers and sisters. If I truly want to help my religion in this country, the best way is by having good actions. The best way is by edifying myself, my actions, making myself in a good, presentable way. And when you look at Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, the Holy Prophet and the Imams, this is how they were so successful. If you were to ask me, what was the key to the success of the Prophet? When thousands upon thousands of people began to join his message, the Quran says, وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا. A time came in which people began to enter Islam in masses, thousands. What drew them to Islam? What attracted everyone to Islam? You think it was the mesmerizing speeches of Rasulullah because he went on the minbar and he gave such beautiful lectures, even though the speeches of Rasulullah were great. You think he used logic with them, he used philosophy? You think the Prophet relied on intellectual argument by telling them it doesn't make sense to worship the idols, worship Allah because the idols are in need, even though the Prophet said that. But that wasn't the biggest factor that drew people to Islam. It wasn't the intellect of Islam. It wasn't the fact that it's a rational religion, even though it is, and it makes sense. The number one factor that attracted people to Islam was the akhlaq of Rasulullah, the demeanor of Rasulullah, because he was so humble. You come to him, you hear all this propaganda. Remember, now we have propaganda against Islam? There was so much propaganda against the Prophet. They used to say he's crazy. They used to call him a magician, a soothsayer. They used to make up so many things against him. But when they would come and see him, they would find a completely different picture. He was so down to earth, so humble, so nice. The nicest human being you can ever imagine was Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He was so polite, so forgiving, so respectful with everyone, even children. When they saw this akhlaq, this character from Rasulullah, Rasulullah entered their hearts unwillingly. You see, when you do good acts for other people, they will love you unwillingly because you own their hearts. I can't hate someone who's so nice and polite and respectful. I can't. It's impossible. Because unwillingly, you will love that person. The heart is inclined, is attracted to people who are nice and respectful and forgiving and merciful. The Holy Quran speaks about this. Allah says in the Quran, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. Allah says, Ya Rasulullah, one of your secrets for your success is because you were so merciful with your tribe. You were so patient. You were so forgiving. You were so humble with them. You were so polite with them. You were so respectful with them. And if it wasn't for that, if you were rude, repulsive, arrogant, the Quran tells the Prophet, they would have all ran away from you. No one would have stood with Rasulullah. No one would have sacrificed for him. No one would have supported him. I don't care how beautiful his message would be. If his akhlaq was not good, if he was not nice to his companions, they would have all abandoned him, deserted him. This is what the Quran says. وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. And then the Quran says, فَاعْفُ عَنْهُمْ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لَهُمْ وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. The Quran says, so be forgiving with your people. Be kind with them. Be respectful. Be merciful with them. This is how Rasulullah was with them. شَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. Anytime you want to make a decision, ask them, seek their advice. That's why Rasulullah, anytime he wanted to do something big in the Muslim, something big, important, there's a war coming, we have to defend ourselves, we need to move to another city, anything big, he would gather his ashab, his companions, and he would ask one after the other, what do you think? What do you think? When Rasulullah used to do that, he used to make them feel important, even though their advice was useless. These Arab nomads, they didn't know anything. But he made them feel important. Imagine I ask you guys, when I have something big, I ask you, what do you think? I'm giving you importance. So they loved Rasulullah because he was so humble and down to earth with them. There was no one like Rasulullah in his akhlaq. And that's why he was so successful. The Quran says, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. Allah, He says that the akhlaq of Rasulullah was exceptional. It was extraordinary. It was out of the world. And this is God saying about it. So this was one of the main points that attracted people to Islam during the early days of Islam. If I can please ask the brothers up there, please quiet down. Please, brothers up there, quiet down a little. Let us focus. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And likewise, when you read the history of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, they followed in the footsteps of their grandfather Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. Every single one of the Imam. Do you know how they attracted people to their way, to the path of Ahlul Bayt? Do you know how they had so many companions? It was because of their akhlaq, because of their demeanor. The book of Tariq Dimashq, authored by one of our scholars, one of the Muslim scholars who was a Sunni scholar by the name of Ibn Asakir, he mentions this story in his book Tariq Dimashq. He was a historian and a scholar. He says that there was a man by the name of Isam ibn al-Mustalaq. He was a Wahhabi. This is what we call him today. He was a Nasibi. He hated Imam Ali. He hated Imam Hassan and Hussain, the children of Imam Ali. He says one day, Isam ibn al-Mustalaq, he narrates the story. He says, I left Sham. He came from Sham. I came to Medina. All of a sudden, who does he see? He sees al-Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam. He says, I went to him. I hated him and his father. And in the middle of the street, I began to swear at Imam Hussain. I began to insult him. He says every word of profanity that I knew, I used it against him. Imagine if someone does that to you, brothers and sisters. Someone comes to me and he begins to swear at me for no reason. What would I do? What would I do? How would I react to that person? Sometimes for the silliest reasons, we start a fight. Because he looked at me in a wrong way. Because he said something that I didn't like, you know. He was getting, like we love saying this, he was getting cocky with me. And we start a fight. Imam Hussain alayhi salam, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he sees this guy, all this profanity, all these insults, disrespect. Why? You know what Imam Hussain does? He himself, Asam ibn al-Mustalaq, he says, I saw the Imam. He was just silent, listening. When I finished, he looked at me with a smile on his face and with so much love and mercy and compassion. And he asked me these 3 words. He told me, إن استرشدتنا لو استرشدتنا لرشدناك ولو استعنتنا لعناك ولو استرفدتنا لرفدناك. You know what he told him? He told him, you look like a stranger here in Medina. I'm sure that you have the wrong person. I'm sure this is all a misunderstanding. If you need help, I'll help you. If you need guidance, I'll give you guidance. You know what Asam ibn al-Mustalaq says? He says, Wallahi, all the hatred that I had in my heart was completely diffused. I was so embarrassed of myself that I was so rude with him. But he was so kind with me. Imam Hussain dispelled all that animosity. He wanted to drink the blood of Imam Hussain with just a few seconds of kind words. And then Imam Hussain asked him, where do you come from? He said, I come from Sham. The Imam used an Arabic expression. He said, Shanshanatun a'rifuha min akhzami. Basically, if you come from Sham, of course, I don't expect too much from you. Because in Sham, they would brainwash people, Bani Umayyah, to hate Ahlul Bayt. It's like a white guy comes from Alabama and he hates Islam. And you come from Alabama. You know, there's this propaganda that exists there. So this was Sham. There was the propaganda of Bani Umayyah. And Imam Hussain told him, I don't blame you. You've been brainwashed. If you need anything, I will give you. If you want shelter, if you want food, you want money. Look, if you need any help in this city, come to my house and I will give you that help. This man, Asham ibn al-Mustalaq, he says, Wallahi, before the story, the person I hated most in my life was Ali ibn Abi Talib and his son Hussein. After this story, just took a couple of minutes, the person I loved most was Hussein and his father Ali. What did Imam Hussein do? Did he give him lectures about Ahlul Bayt being, the truth, and Muawiyah, he's this, he's that? No. He didn't give any lectures. He didn't give him any books. All he did was an act of kindness. All he did was he negated his evil with good words. And this is exactly what the Quran says. Allah says in the Quran, ادفع بالتي هي أحسن فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم. Subhanallah. Allah says that if any time there's animosity between you and someone else, make sure that you always negate the evil that comes out of other people towards you. You negate it. And you fight it with good words. You fight it with good ways. Don't fight evil with evil because it'll just get worse. Fight evil with good. Because the Quran says it will be like magic for you. All of a sudden the enemy will transform into a friend. Try it, brothers and sisters. You need a little patience. You have to learn to control your temper and anger. If someone comes to disrespect you, but you become humble and you show that person some acts of kindness, good words, wallahi, that person will start loving you. It's like magic. The enemy turns into a friend, turns into a supporter. That enemy of Ahlul Bayt, just a few words, Imam Hussain completely transformed him into a lover of Ahlul Bayt. This was the success of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. It was their akhlaq. It was their behavior and their demeanor. Likewise, a similar story happened with our 7th Imam, Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. There used to be also a Nasibi man, a Wahhabi man that lived back then. Like the Wahhabis of today. He used to hate Imam al-Kadhim because he was brainwashed, he was ignorant. Every day the hadith says when he used to leave his house, he would come by the house of Imam al-Kadhim and he used to swear at the Imam and insult him. It was like a daily ritual. Every day I have to do this. The Imam never said anything until one day the companions of the 7th Imam, they were fed up. They met in the masjid and they said, you know what, this guy, enough is enough. He's been insulting our Imam day in and day out. Till when are we going to stay quiet? And they decided to go and kill that man. So they went to the 7th Imam and they told him of their plan. We've decided to go and kill this vicious enemy of Allah who swears at you and insults you every day, and put an end to all of this. You know what the 7th Imam says? The Imam says, no, don't kill him. This is a terrible solution. The Imam says, I have a much better solution to put an end to this guy's offensive language and his disrespect. What's your solution? The Imam said, bring my donkey. And the Imam, the hadith says he used to have a donkey. Now back then, donkeys were the worst types of, the lower class used to ride donkeys. It's like someone that today rides a 20-year-old car. So rich people, wealthy people, they would never ride a donkey. It was the camels, and then the best was the horses, the Arabian horses. So many people, they wouldn't ride donkeys. Why? Because it's very, very low class, very cheap. And even, some good people, they wouldn't ride donkeys because societal norms was, against that. It looks humiliating. They'd be embarrassed being seen riding a donkey. Well, Imam Kadhim, the grandson of the Holy Prophet, he didn't care about those norms. Who cares? So he tells them, bring my ride. He goes on his donkey. He asks, where is this man? This man that used to offend me so much. They tell him he lives in this place. He has a farm. He used to be a farmer. So the Imam goes to his farm. He sees he's standing and taking care of his plants and his farm. So the Imam enters his property, his farm. When the guy looks, he sees the Imam on his donkey. He's approaching him. He begins to insult him. What are you doing coming in my land? You're going to kill my plants. Don't walk on my plants. You're going to kill them. So he begins to disrespect the Imam. The Imam could not care less. The Imam could care less. He didn't care about all that, expletives that he was using, all the profanity that he was using. He came to him until he approached this Nasibi. And he asked him a question. He asked him, how much did you spend on these plants that you claim I killed them? The Imam didn't kill any of the plants, but the guy was just being rude. The Imam asked him, how much did you spend on these plants? He said, I spent 100 dinars. He said, now after they're ready and you sell them, how much do you expect to make? He said, I expect to make 200 dinars. So what's his profit? If he spent 100 and he is going to sell them for 200, how much is his profit? Thank you. 100. His profit is 100. The Imam, he took a bag from outside his pocket and he gave him. He told him, in this bag there are 300 dinars. Take it, it's a gift from you to you. The man was expecting that the Imam's here to fight him. The Imam's here to seek revenge. He told him, take these 300 dinars. It's a gift for you. And he still has the plans to sell them. It's not like the Imam, was reimbursing him for his loss. He didn't lose anything. He can go and sell those for an additional 200. When this man, who was an enemy of the Imam, who hated the Imam, he saw this act of kindness. How humble is this man? How down to earth is he? Allahu Akbar. I have shown him nothing but disrespect, and he comes all the way to my house to visit me just to give me some money, just to give me a gift. He says, all that animosity, it was diffused, it was gone away. And then he said, Allahu a'lam haythu yaj'alu risalatah. Allah knows better why He chooses you people as the Imams and as messengers. Meaning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose you to be an Imam for a reason. Because you have absolutely no animosity in your heart. And then the next day, he showed up at the masjid where the Imam used to teach. The companions, they thought he's here once again. They don't know what happened. They thought he's here to insult the Imam. But now he's a transformed man. Now he's here to come and benefit from the Imam, because now he's a lover of Ahlul Bayt. He's a follower of Ahlul Bayt. So the companions of the 7th Imam are shocked. What's going on? Yesterday he's swearing and insulting the Imam. Now he's come here. He wants to sit and benefit from the Imam and learn from him. So the Imam, after, he tells them, come my companions. He tells them, remember your solution was to kill him? I had a much better solution. Why kill him when you can transform the enemy into a friend? I made him into a friend, into a lover. What did you do? I just gave him a gift, a kind act, and it completely transformed him. This is what Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam would do. And this is, as I said, what the Quran says, idfa' billati hiya ahsan. فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ. The best way to attract even the enemies is to show them acts of kindness, good words and good acts. It will really affect them. You'll own their heart, even if they don't like it. And finally, a story from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. There was a man who was Christian, a Christian man who lived during the time of the 6th Imam. His name was Zakaria ibn Ibrahim. So he narrates the story. He says, I used to be a Christian. But one day he decided to convert to Islam. After he converted to Islam, he wanted to go to Hajj one year. So he said, I went to Mecca and I met al-Imam al-Sadiq there. I met al-Imam al-Sadiq and I told him that I used to be a Christian. Now I've converted to Islam. But my parents, listen carefully, brothers and sisters. He told the Imam, but my parents are still Christian. How do I deal with my parents? How do I engage with my parents? Because they're Christian, should I, excommunicate them? Should I cut my relationship with them? Should I stop respecting them because they are Christian and we're Muslim? Listen to what Imam al-Sadiq says, brothers and sisters. The Imam told him, you're asking me if you should stop respecting them? No way! The Imam tells him exactly the opposite. He says, from now on, I want you to treat your parents much better than you treated them before. I want you, and his father had died, he only had an old mother. He told him, when you go back to your village, to your mother's house, I want you to start giving her extra care. I want you to start serving her much more than before, respecting her, taking care of her, much more than you used to when you were a Christian. Why? Because the Imam is smart. The Quran says, "Id'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikma wal maw'izati al hasana." You want to invite someone to Islam? Don't tell him be a Muslim. Show him that being a Muslim is the best way. Through your akhlaq, through your good ways and manners and behavior. So the Imam told him, when you go back, all I have to tell you, treat your mother much better than you used to treat her before, even if she's a Christian. The man says, I went back to my town. I went to my mother. I started loving her much more. I started caring for her much more. I started to cook for her. I would feed her and put her to rest. Just like a baby, just like a child, I started caring for her. I would even carry her on my back. I would serve her much more than before. So my mother, one day, she noticed that I had changed. She told me, my son, I noticed that ever since you left our religion of Christianity, which she wasn't happy about, that you have been respecting me much more than before. You're serving me, you love me much more than before. What's going on? Why? The man tells her, these are the wills of my Imam. My Imam told me to do this. So she says, your Imam of Islam really told you to respect your Christian mother much more than before? He told her, yes. So she thought to herself, and she said, your Imam, this person that you're talking about, Sadiq, he must be a messenger. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. He must be a messenger. Because only a messenger, a prophet, would say such divine words. Such, powerful words, such good words that respect your mother, even if she's a Christian. So he must be a prophet. But he tells her he's not a prophet. This man that I'm telling you about, he's the grandson of the prophet. If only you would see and hear about the prophet. So she was curious. She began to ask him about the prophet and then about Islam, until she finally decided to become Muslim, because she saw this is a beautiful religion. Did he ever tell her, come and become Muslim? He did it so indirectly. Through his good actions, he showed her that this is a beautiful religion. And he says that my mother, after telling her about Islam so much and what Imam al-Sadiq does and his behavior and everything, she said, my dear son, how do I become a Muslim? So this Christian man, he told his mother, just say the Shahadatain. He taught her about Islam. He says the next day, she prayed the 5 daily prayers. She got sick at night and she died. So pure. She went to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so pure. So you see how a few beautiful acts, what a good impression he left upon his mother, that this religion must be a very good religion that teaches my son to respect me even more than before. It made him into a better human being. And I remember a couple of weeks ago, I was seeing a video of an Australian man. He was giving a lecture on the pulpit to Muslims. He told them, I used to be an atheist, But then I converted. After I converted, I started caring for my parents more than before. He said my parents were way against me becoming a Muslim. They were not happy at all. They tried to discourage me. But he says after becoming a Muslim, I learned the importance of parents in Islam. Because non-Muslims, they don't give too much importance to parents. After you're 18, you leave your parents, you talk to them once a year, once a month. Who cares about your parents? Islam says if your parents aren't happy with you, you won't enter heaven. You won't be successful. You have to make sure that your parents are happy with you. So this Australian man, he says, when I became Muslim, I began treating my parents much better. So he says, my father called me one day. He says, son, I've noticed that after you became Muslim, you've been treating me much better than before. He says, after I told him that this is the teachings of my religion, he says he didn't become Muslim, but at least his perception of Islam changed. He used to see Islam as a backwards, violent religion, this and that. Now, everything changed. He saw Islam in a new light. Islam is a beautiful religion. He no longer discouraged me from being a Muslim. Because when I became a Muslim, I became a better human being. You see what a beautiful message we can teach other people just by being good Muslims, devout Muslims. You don't have to tell anyone, come and be a Muslim. Just make sure that your actions are good. And this is the best propagation. This is the best way that I can attract other people to Islam. So these are some stories, brothers and sisters, that we can be inspired. We can be inspired by them from our Imams, from history, and they're very beautiful. But I'll mention a few stories that are contemporary of Muslims who use their actions to attract people to their religion. The first story I read a couple of years ago of a story that happened in Charlotte. I think Charlotte, South Carolina, or North Carolina. There was a mosque in Charlotte, and they were having their Friday prayer. And there was an anti-Muslim group that had organized a rally against Islam there. So what did they decide to do? Friday, when there's Salatul Jum'ah, they go in front of that mosque and they protest against Islam. Just like, if you remember what Terry Jones tried to do a couple of years here in front of the Islamic Center. So what they tried to do is organize a protest in front of that Islamic Center in Charlotte. So they came while it was Friday during the khutbah, during the prayer, and they held, all those anti-Muslims, those ignorant people who know nothing about Islam, and they take everything that they know about Islam from Fox News. So they came and they had billboards and signs against Islam. Islam is evil. Islam is bad. We want you Muslims to leave us, the U.S. You're not welcome here. All that nonsense. So the Muslims, they noticed there's some chaos outside. They went, they saw it's a protest against Muslims. So one of the men came and he began to speak to them. You've been brainwashed. You don't know what's going on. You shouldn't watch the media. Islam isn't bad. All of this stuff. He tried to convince them that Islam is not a bad religion. But they wouldn't listen. It wouldn't work. A second, third guy came to speak to them. Nothing would work. Until one of the women that works in that Islamic center, she got a brilliant idea. What was her idea? She says that I came to this woman. There was one woman who was in her mid-50s, and she was ranting against Islam. Islam is bad, leave America, this, all that, the typical Trump supporter. So she came to her. She says, I came closer and closer and closer, and then I hugged her. She says, when I hugged her, I felt she was so tense. After I hugged her, all that tension, she says, the Muslim girl, the Muslim woman, she says, all that tension was diffused. She says, all the billboards, they fell from her hands, and she was speechless. That woman who was protesting against Islam, and she just said one word, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Now maybe she said that unwillingly, because like I said, when you do a good act for someone, you respect someone, when you confront evil with good, that person unwillingly starts loving you. Remember the verse of the Quran. ادفع بالتي هي أحسن فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم. That enemy transforms over a second into a friend, into a supporter. So she said, I'm sorry, and she completely changed. Then this woman, she told her, please, can you come in our center? We want to give you some coffee. We want to give you some food. She came. And then in the article that I read, they did an interview with this woman who was this anti-Muslim woman. She said after that hug, everything changed. All the animosity was completely drained out. I used to see Muslims as monsters, but after that hug, I saw, what? She's just a normal human being like us. Just one act of kindness completely changed her perception. Now, she didn't become Muslim, but at least she no longer hates Muslim. One less enemy is always better, isn't it? She will no longer protest against Muslims and come to these rallies. What did these Muslims do? Just one hug. You see how it changed? If I were to come and give that lady 20 lectures, maybe it wouldn't have affected her. But just one hug completely changed her. This is where the Imam says, كُونُوا دُعَاةً لَنَا بِغَيْرِ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ. Attract people through your actions. One kind act completely transformed them. Just like the stories of the Imams. Their enemies would come to them. One kind act, one nice word the Imam would say, and that person would completely transform. Because human beings have emotions. They have a heart. No matter how much they may hate me, if I say something nice, if I'm polite, if I do a kind act, all that animosity will go. I'll own their heart. This is the law of this world. So, after the story, she says that now I want to tell all the non-Muslims, my friends who hate Islam, you know what? We're so ignorant. We've misjudged Islam. We shouldn't do this. They're good people. We shouldn't, fall for the trap of the media who constantly tells us that they're bad, they're evil, they're this and that. So one kind act, and it had such a great result. This is one example. And another example that I read about also, I read an article, was about an intern student who joined the University of Princeton, the Witherspoon Institute. So there was a Muslim man who wanted to be an intern for one of the professors there in Princeton University. And the article is written by the professor. She's a non-Muslim. She says that they told me that you're going to have a new intern. So they brought me his resume. His name was Muhammad, she says. He was a Muslim. And I looked at his resume. It was perfect. Best grades, the best CV, everything is perfect about it. So finally the day came in which he came into my office, so we meet. And we settle everything. So he came into my office. The first thing I did was I extended my hand. And she's female, he's male. I extended my hand to say hi. But he went like this and he said, I'm sorry, I can't shake your hands because I'm Muslim. She says when he did that, I was very, very insulted and offended. To me, I said that this is one of those misogynist Muslims who's biased against women. He's anti-feminist, and I developed every evil, negative stereotype against him. So I completely hated him. And I said, oh man, how's this 6 months going to last with this, misogynistic, prejudiced guy? I completely hated him. So she says, I judged him from day one because he did not want to shake my hand. Sometimes it's difficult, brothers and sisters, when we are put in that awkward situation, when someone from the opposite gender extends their hand and I say no. Maybe they'll develop, those negative views against me. But wait, it takes patience sometimes. She says, but after a while, every day he would come and he would show me utmost respect. I had so many interns during the last years, but he was the most respectful out of them, this Muhammad. He was not misogynistic. He had no bias against women. So day after day, I would see his respect was more and more towards me. He respected me so much. Never did he say no to me. He would respect me more than anyone I had seen in my life. Until I realized after a couple of months that this guy is a gem. He's a treasure. He's an exceptional human being. And I felt so bad for misjudging him from day one. He had his religious, excuse. And it was a valid excuse. It wasn't because he was an evil person or he was a misogynistic person. She says after that, I learned a lesson. He's my student, but he taught me a lesson to never misjudge people. And then she says in the end, from now on, if any Muslim comes to me and I extend my hand and he says no, I'll never misjudge that Muslim. I have to see him. I have to see his character. I have to, see his personality. Only then I will judge that person. So you see, because he was such a good person, a decent person, his work was very good. He was so respectful to his professor. She developed the most respectful view about him. Even though there was that barrier in the beginning, the handshake. But after that, it all dissolved. So what did he do? Did he tell her that, we Muslims, we're not misogynistic, we shake hands? He didn't speak about Islam or anything. All he told her was those words. My religion says we can't shake hands. That's it. The rest was all being polite and nice and respectful. And it left the most beautiful image in her perception, in her mind. So one small act, brothers and sisters, sometimes, all it takes is one small act of being good, saying something nice, and we will completely transform an enemy. An enemy. Just like the stories that I mentioned from the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And these stories that we hear now. So I don't have to be a scholar. I don't have to have, proper Islamic education to attract people. To implement this verse where Allah says, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal maw'izati al hasana." If I want to attract other people, non-Muslims, to Islam, number one, begin, as the Imam said, by being a respectful human being. Because if they see me, I'm someone who lies and cheats and deceives, and I'm not honest, I'm not polite, they will say their religion is a bad religion. So we have to make sure, brothers and sisters, that our actions are reflecting a good image. A good image back at our religion. This is the greatest service that we can do, and every single one of us here can do that. Just be polite and have good akhlaq, good behavior, good demeanor, and that's the best way that you propagate. You do da'wah for your religion. You invite and attract people to your religion. That's the greatest service I can do for Islam, and the greatest service I can do for Imam Hussain alayhi salam. The cause of Imam Hussain. He gave everything he had for Islam, brothers and sisters. The least thing we can do is our actions are good. Because we are Shia of Ahlul Bayt. Shia means follower. That means our actions should be like the actions of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Should be like the actions of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. The Imam gave everything. He sacrificed everything for Allah. What am I giving back to Allah? What am I doing for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, brothers and sisters? If we truly want to support the cause of Imam Hussain, that's the least thing we can do. The Imam gave all of his children in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His smallest baby, Abdullah al-Radhi', he gave that for Allah. He gave him and sacrificed him for God. And his oldest child, he sacrificed him for Allah. Ali Akbar. Imam Hussain alayhi salam was so attached to Ali Akbar. And it wasn't just because Ali Akbar was his oldest child, but it was because he himself, Imam Hussain, said about him when he left to fight the enemies, that Ali Akbar was the most resembling person to his grandfather Rasulullah. أشبه الناس خلقا وخلقا ومنطقا برسول. He was a copy, a replica of Rasulullah. In his speech, in his walk, in his talk, in his demeanor, his akhlaq, even his looks. He looked just like Rasulullah. And Imam Hussain used to say that when I used to miss Rasulullah, when I wanted to see Rasulullah, I used to go and see my son Ali. Because he reminded me of my grandfather Rasulullah. And that's why Imam Hussain was so attached to Ali Akbar. It was the day of Ashura. All the companions were killed. Only the relatives of Imam Hussain had remained. 18 relatives of Imam Hussain that were all ready to sacrifice their lives for Imam Hussain. The first one to come to Aba Abdullah was Ali Akbar. He came to his father and he asked for permission. My father, allow me to go and fight with all the other companions and relatives of Imam Hussain. The Imam would discourage them. Don't go and fight. Don't go and sacrifice yourself for me. Because the Imam didn't want them to get killed for him. He tried to discourage them. Except Ali Akbar, his oldest son. He didn't tell him don't go. He didn't discourage him because Ali Akbar was his personal sacrifice. The Imam wanted to teach us that when he has a cause, when you have a cause, you begin with your own children. You don't sacrifice other people's children and you keep your children safe. The Imam didn't tell him no, but nor did he tell him yes. Because the Imam didn't have the heart to tell him yes. Because Ali Akbar was the blood of the heart of Imam Hussain. The hadith says all he did, فَنَظَرَ إِلَيْهِ نَظْرَةَ الْآيَسِ. He looked at Ali with despair. As if, yes, my son, go and get killed. And Ali Akbar, he understood that his father had given him the permission, but he couldn't say those words, my dear son, go and get killed. He was too dear for the heart of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. He was too dear to his heart. Ali Akbar, he went to the battlefield. He fought so courageously against the enemies. He killed many of them. And then he came back to the tent and he told his father, أبا العطش قد قتلني وثقل الحديد قد أجهدني. My dear father, the thirst is killing me. I can no longer bear the agony, the heat, the armor, the pain. He came and he asked his father, Imam Hussain, for water. What did Imam Hussain tell him? Ali Akbar says, my father told me, my son Ali, feel my tongue. Ali says, I felt the tongue of my father Hussein. He says, it was so parched, it was so dry, it was drier than wood. The Imam was telling him, my son, I know you're thirsty. I know you're dying of thirst, but I am more thirsty than you. I am in more pain than you. I have no water. What should I do for you? And then the Imam tells him, go back and find my son Ali. فَسَرْعَانَ مَا يُسْقِيكَ جَدُّكَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ بِكَأْسِهِ الْأَوْفَى الَّذِي لَا تَظْمَأُ بَعْدَهَا أَبَدًا. He says, go back and find my son Ali, and it won't be long before Rasulullah will give you a drink, and you will never go thirsty after that. Basically, what is Imam Hussain telling his son Ali? My son Ali, if you want water, if you want to quench your thirst, go and get killed. That's the only way that the misery will end, the pain will end. Allahu Akbar. How difficult is it when a father is helpless, when his son comes to him, he's in pain. Imagine your son comes and tells you, my father, I'm in pain. You tell him, go and die, and that's the only time the pain will come to an end. This is what Imam Hussain had to tell his son Ali al-Akbar. Ali al-Akbar went back and he fought so courageously until the enemies, they surrounded him. One of them, he struck Ali on his chest, another on his head. The blood of Ali al-Akbar began to gush on the horse. The eyes of the horse got covered with the blood. The horse was supposed to take Ali al-Akbar back to the tent, but because he could not see, he took him to the tents of the enemies. Ali al-Akbar knew that this was his end. He cried out, Alayka minni salam, Abata, farewell my father Hussein. This is my grandfather Rasulullah. He has given me from that drink that I will never go thirsty after. And he says, oh Hussein, there is one drink that is left and reserved just for you. Ali al-Akbar alayhi salam, the horse took him to the enemies. They converged from every side. They pounced on Ali and they began to kill him and strike him with the sword and the daggers and the arrows. Imam Hussain alayhi salam, he came quickly to the sight of Ali. When he used to arrive and reach the sight of all the companions, he used to come down from his horse, except with Ali al-Akbar. Imam Hussain could not come down from the horse. He threw himself from on top of the horse on the body of Ali. He saw his son Ali is in pieces. He cried out, Waladi Ali, my son Ali, my son Ali. The enemy said, this is the first time we saw the Imam was crying out so loud. If you have a child, you've lost a child, you know what Imam Hussain was going through. He took the cheek of Ali, he placed it on his cheek. He saw it's not enough. He is still in so much pain. He slept, he lied down by the body of Ali while the enemies are around him and they're laughing at him, they're gloating at him. And then he cried out, على الدنيا بعدك العفا ولدي علي. My dear son Ali, this world, this life is not worth living after you. أما أنت فقد استرحت من هم الدنيا وغمها وبقي أبوك وحيدا غريبا لهمها. As for you, O Ali, the torture, the pain, it's all finished now. Now you're relieved of the torture of this dunya, but you have left your father alone between the enemies. Imam Hussain alayhi salam then went back to the tent. He could not carry the body of his son Ali back to the tent. So he cried out, Ya Shabab Bani Hashim, ihmilu na'sha waladi Ali. He told his other relatives to go and carry the body of his son Ali back to the tent, because he could not carry it. It was in so many pieces. Assalamu alayka ya mawlaya ya Aba Abdullah. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Brothers and sisters, just a few minutes of your time. We'll read a short latmiyya, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. My son Ali, come back to me. My son Ali, come back to me. Everyone. My son Ali, come back to me. My son Ali, come back to me. My son Ali, come back to me. My son Ali, everyone, come back to me. My son Ali, my son Ali, come back to me. Ali, my beloved, great and cherished young son, the most resembling to the great prophet in demeanor and qualities alike, even in appearance and light of face. Ali, you have left your father alone between the enemies. How can I fight when I need you? You have left me. My son Ali, come back to me. When I need you, you have left me. My son Ali, come back to me. My son Ali, 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 everyone. My son Ali, come back to me. My son Ali, my son Ali, come back to me. Ali, you came back from the battle distressed. One drink and water and you would have been blessed. Oh Father, the excessive heat and armor, I can no longer bear the pain and torture. How merciless they become the enemy. But martyrdom is my destiny. When I need you, you have left me. My son Ali, come back to me. My son Ali, 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 everyone. My son Ali, come back to me. My son Ali, my son Ali, my son Ali, come back to me. Hussein replied with a broken heart and said, Ali, come feel your baby brother's dry tongue. Paler than wood, indeed he will not live long. So be patient, for it will not be too long before your grandfather will give you that drink. You will never go thirsty after it. When I need you, you have left me. My son Ali, come back to me. My son Ali, 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 everyone. My son Ali, come back to me. 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 نسألك اللهم وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم العز الأجل الأكرم يا الله. Everyone, يا الله 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 يا الله. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج واجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه والمستشهدين بين يديه. Brothers and sisters, I just want to remind you, inshallah, we will have the program of the day of Ashura Thursday at 9 a.m. here. I will recite, inshallah, the maqtal of Imam Hussain, the entire story of what happened on the day of Ashura. I know it's going to be a work day, school day, but it's one day, brothers and sisters. And Imam Hussain alayhi salam deserves that you take one day off for him. So inshallah, we hope to see all of you Thursday at 9 a.m. here. I will recite the maqtal in English. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.